Hello? Yeah, I'll tell him. Hey sinners, it's your fucking prophet speaking. God says that we actually came from her vagina, not Adam's rib. God wants us to address her as that bitch now in all prayers and legal documents. Did you know that John has a twink on the side? Olivia doesn't even know. Oh my god, I heard that they're swingers. She practically propositioned me in the church parking lot. Heaven gained an angel, more like hell gained a bitch.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Pouty Mouth. I'm your prophet and host, Tara Herbert, and I'm really excited. I have Eden on with us today, and I cannot wait to get into, one, your business for photography and all of your lore since I've followed you for such a long time. So give us a little quick intro into who you are, Eden. The girls definitely want to know.
I know, I'm like, where do we even start? I'm so used to being on podcasts for my business. So I have like my little elevator spiel of what I do professionally, always like ready to go. But personally, my name is Eden Strader. I'm originally from Utah and Southern California. I grew up between the two and started my 20s as a little child bride in the Mormon church and launched a wedding photography business, which sounds like that's how you found me, which is so fun. And I'm always obsessed when people saw that version of me and like still follow me because I'm like, oh, you've seen it all, because now I'm ending my 20s and I'm what I call a professional lesbian. And like I've turned my queerness, my queer community like into a job and career. So we could not have gone more different sides of the spectrum, but I'm very happy to be here. It's been quite the 10 years.
Well, I love it because I feel like it, like, probably the people who still follow you were probably similar to me, where it was like, I'm also leaving. And so it's like, oh, like, here's someone that's like awfully also left as well. So it is interesting to see. And I'm always so curious about people who leave who are come out as well with it, because I'm just like, holy cow, that's so like much. Let's dive in. So start with kind of just like your Mormon origin story. Like, what was your upbringing like in Mormonism?
Yeah. So I'm like, my mom is going to kill me for telling this story because she's so embarrassed now that she's like through and through ally. She's still Mormon, but this is like the funniest story of my life, which is that I grew up originally in Southern California. My parents are split, and my mom's side, stepdad, all of them are Mormon. Dad's side is not. And when I was going into third grade, so like 10 years old, my mom and stepdad decided to move to Utah because they wanted to be more around the culture of Mormonism. And the girls in third grade, rumor had it, were having sleepovers where they were kissing each other. And so my parents moved us to Utah so I wouldn't end up being gay, which is so funny given what has happened and who I am. I'm like, dang,
Oh my
we stayed in
gosh.
California, where would we be now? Like, how much quicker would I have gotten here? But yeah, I was raised like through and through in the church, born into it, moved to Utah when I was 10, and thankfully was splitting my time between like very heavy Utah Mormon culture in Utah and then a non-Mormon family in Southern California. So I had exposure to life outside of Mormonism, which I'm really grateful for. I feel like that kept me from being a really judgmental Mormon, a really like preachy Mormon, even when I was super deep into it. But as you know, like, especially as a child, if you were raised in it, Mormonism is so all consuming. It's the one and only true church. Everyone else is living a lie, or they just haven't been taught the truth yet. And so when I was in high school, I was 18 and I met a 22-year-old boy, which I'm like, no one had any questions about that. No one wanted to question why a 22-year-old was dating
They
a
never
high
do.
schooler. No, I was like, y'all, I was in high
I mean,
school.
I had
That was
friends that
easy.
were engaged. Yeah. That's
Yeah. So
wild.
yeah, we started dating when I was finishing up high school and we went on to get married. And I had always had a lot of questions on the church for sure. I'm a very strong personality, even when I was like a little bit more meek and Mormon, like even that I was a very strong personality. So I was always raising questions about racism and feminism and the money in the church and the polygamy. Like I always had a lot of questions on why this was okay and why we were going along with it. And the ordinance, whatever you want to call it, the policy that children of queer parents couldn't get baptized. Do you remember that coming out in like 2015? They like couldn't get
Yeah.
baptized.
Yeah. I definitely remember
That
that.
that was one of my like final straws of like, this is not cool. Like something is seriously wrong. Like you can't be asking 8-year-olds to disavow their parents for being gay. Like that's so insane. And that was like a couple weeks before I went through the temple to get married, which so I was like in this position of like, oh my gosh, like the church is insane. I really hate this. I don't think I like this, but I'm also getting married in a couple weeks. Like, what do we do?
Yeah.
And I went through the temple and I hated it. Oh my God, I hated it. I had a panic attack. Like I literally was like hyperventilating, like screaming, crying, throwing up vibes
Oh my
in the
God.
temple. I hated it. And but as you know, it's like, what else do I do? There's nothing else. So went through, got
What
married.
specific, like in the temple, sorry to cut you off, but
No, you're
like
so
what
fine, please.
specifically was like the moment in the temple that you were just like, this is like too much? Because for me, originally starting off, I was like, and I went through the Salt Lake temple the first time. So I like saw the live action, like old people doing the
No.
story of the Garden of Eden, you know? And so like at first I was just like, what's so like this is so stupid that like we can't talk about this, right? Like just
Mhm.
watching that like play out. But what was it for you that like the moment where it started to like change when you're like, wait, actually like this isn't just like I don't know, a silly little Garden of Eden story, like it
Yeah.
starts to get more serious.
Always hate it. Do you know like the Hosanna shout that they do with the napkins when we like dedicate a temple?
Mhm. Yeah.
I hated that even as like a teenager. Like I refused to do it. It felt so culty to me. And that was something that my parents like knew. Like I was very vocal. I was like, I do not like this. I'm not doing it. Like it feels so culty. It feels like I'm in a movie. Like I'm not doing that. And so as I prepared to go into the
Yeah.
temple, even though my parents couldn't tell me what was going to happen, they were very vocal in being like, you're not going to like it. I think this is going to be really hard for you because it's really symbolic and it's like the Hosanna shout times a million. And I went into the temple obviously like not knowing what happens because no one's allowed to tell you. And I remember
Yeah.
on putting on the clothes, I was like, no, 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 no. This is not
Yeah.
good. Like I am not gonna have fun here. And when they separated us into men and women, and I think it was honestly like when they made you agree to stay in the room and that like if you got up or you
Mm.
left or you weren't doing what you were supposed to do, you were like betraying God. And they made you take that promise or like almost make that agreement to do what was coming without telling you what you were going to do. Like it was so non-consensual of like,
Yeah.
hey, like you're about to do something and we're not going to tell you what it is, but you need to agree now that like no matter what happens, you're staying in this room. And I remember being like, this is insane. Like, it just felt like so culty. Like, I was just like, this feels like things I've watched documentaries on. Like, what do you mean I'm dressed like a Keebler
Mm.
elf? And you're making me say that, like, I'm going to do something I don't know what I'm going to do and I have to do it. Like, it was so
Yeah.
odd. And then obviously, just an escalation from there of chanting and prayer circles and handshakes and when I went through the temple, they were still doing the pledging to your husband. And
Yeah.
I've been a
Same.
feminist since the dawn of time. I was just like, no, like I'm not doing
Yeah.
all that. Like this is so messed up. Like this is and I just started like panicking. I remember I was crying and when we were allowed to talk, my mom, with bless her heart, was like, "Do you feel the spirit that much? Like this is beautiful." And I was like, "Girl, I'm having a panic attack. Like we got to go. Like
Oh
I'm
my
not having a
God.
good time."
Yeah, and it's such an awkward time because you like don't know how to get out of it. Like it's so long. It's like 2+ hours, you know, of like this. Because mine, I feel like when I went through, I was going on a mission, so I wasn't like getting
Mm.
married. Um, and so, but I still feel like the same pressure is there.
Yeah.
Like you have to do this step if you want to get to the next step in your life, you know,
Yeah.
or at least in your Mormon life. So you have a lot of pressure. But I thought that like there's moments of like, you know, when you have to put on your garments for the first time in the temple and you're just, I don't know, that moment for me was kind of just like, I cannot imagine myself wearing these for the rest of my life. Like I'm
No,
already
I
so
I put those
uncomfortable.
on and I was like, "So I hate this." Like, really not having a good time, you guys. These are so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, even just from, like, a physical standpoint, I was like, this doesn't even feel physically good, let alone emotionally.
Yeah. And then I had moments of like, I don't know, where I was like, oh, maybe it's not that bad. Cause I remember like looking in the mirror and being like, dang, I look good. Like, white is my color.
I
And
love that
then
for you. I never had that
after,
moment.
yeah, well, it was like a brief moment. And I was just like, oh, okay, like that looks good. But then like seeing the temple video where everyone is white and then like the room all being white, like started to be like, there's something wrong with me because I'm black. Like
Mhm.
Adam and Eve, you know, are portrayed as white. And so even Satan is white, even God and, you know,
Jesus. I'm
Michael
like,
are white, all of them are white.
yeah, I'm like, did y'all forget where Jesus was born? Like, why is he blonde? What are we talking about?
Yeah, all of it, even the whatever the apostles white. And so I just remember that part being like, wait a second, like, and I didn't have like, I would not say that I was a feminist by any means. Like, I feel like I was like anti-feminist and like incredibly like internalized racism as
Mm,
well. So
mhm.
like even that, like it was like I didn't have the words to even describe like what I was feeling. Like now I can describe that now that like, oh, it was unsettling that like everything was white and like everyone was white. Like they made me feel really uncomfortable to feel like, oh, like, so we're all just going to be white in heaven. Is that like the symbolism here, you know?
Oh my God.
And then covenanting to our husbands. Yeah, that was wild. And the prayer circle, that was the same thing for me. The prayer circle where it's like, what are you saying? Like, what is it again? Just the lifting your hands up and God,
It's
hear the
like,
words of my mouth.
God,
Oh
hear
God,
the
hear the
words
words
from
of
our
my mouth.
mouth. Yeah, it's like the way I've blocked it out. I went through the temple like twice. I remember I went like one more time after my endowments, or like maybe twice, to be like, let me give this one more try. And I was like, nope, it gets worse every time. Like this is not my tea. But yeah, it's a lot of chanting. It's the covering of the women's faces. Like there's just
Mm,
so
yeah.
I'm like, anything you can think about that you've seen in a culty movie, we were doing it other than like washing each other's feet. But I've also heard they used to do that or still do that in the
They do
second
that.
anointing. Yeah, like I'm like, it's happening somewhere in the
Yeah.
church.
Yeah, but your memory of it is like strong. Cause like for me, unfortunately, I had to go through a lot. Like I went through like every month almost on my mission, like after a ton of times. And I feel like it never, I don't know, I never got like comfortable with it ever. Like it never was like, oh, I'm like so excited to go to the temple. I was like, no, like I hate being here. I hate doing this and I want to go home.
Yeah.
So you got married then super young. 20 is, well,
Oh, and
you were 18 or you were 20?
well, so I was 18 when I met him. I was 19 when I got engaged, and then we got married 2 days after my 20th birthday so that I wouldn't be a quote unquote child bride like I wasn't in my teens, which is hysterical. I'm like, "No, girl, you're a kid. You're literally a child."
So was he a return missionary then?
Yeah, obviously. Duh.
It is just weird. Like that is a little bit, I don't know, creepy. And so did you like before your marriage, I guess like even when you're growing up and like, you know, like you're talking about like, oh, the girls like in our neighborhood are like kissing each other at sleepovers, like had it ever even crossed your mind at all that you might not be straight?
Yes, like, in hindsight now, yes, but, like, similar to you, I didn't have the verbiage for it, like, it just was so I mean, it's kind of twofold in the fact that, like, 1, I was Mormon, like, and then
Mm,
2, this was I was born in '95, and, like, gay marriage wasn't even legalized until, I wanna say, like, my senior year of high school or even the year after.
hmm.
So it's like even culturally, we weren't talking about being queer, especially for women. We had like Ellen DeGeneres, but like I don't relate to her whatsoever. Like, so it didn't even cross my mind. And I want to say before I say this next part, in case like my parents listen to this on the off chance, like my parents have done so much work to unpack their homophobia, and we can totally get into that. And so I'd
Hmm.
never want to like talk about where they were before that, like before I came out, without giving that caveat, because I'm like, my parents have done so much work and
Yeah.
they have apologized so much for how they thought about queer people when I was growing up. So what But when I was growing up, like I did ask my parents like several times, like, is it normal to think about kissing girls? And is it normal to be attracted to women? And they'd be like, yeah, like it's the devil, it's Satan. And I was like, perfect. Like, oh yeah,
Mm,
I know about that guy, like he apparently loves me, like is in my head quite a bit, trying to get me to kiss women. And
mm,
so I just kind of brushed it off. Like I was just like, okay, like this is a normal thing. Like it's Satan tempting me. And because there was so little queer culture or queer media or discussions about being queer specifically, again, for women, gay men were slightly ahead of the times, but barely. Just, I truly thought everyone felt that way about women. Like I was just like,
mm.
okay, cool. Like everyone thinks about kissing their friends. Everyone thinks about kissing girls. I feel like people that didn't grow up Christian and were closeted, a lot of them have experiences where they would like kiss their friends for practice or like have sleepovers with their friends where
Yeah.
they would cuddle. And I don't know if it's my personality or that I was Mormon, but I had a complete opposite approach. I would not touch my friends. I would not hug them. I would not hold their hands. I was very not touchy with my friends. In girls' locker rooms, I would just stare at the floor. Like I would not make eye contact with
Mm,
anyone. I would go into Victoria's Secret to get a new bra and just like blinders on because I was like, I can't, like looking at women in that way makes me really uncomfortable. And I'm like giving Satan,
mm.
this power by having little butterflies in my tummy if I think about kissing girls or anything like that. So I had a very like, let's just shove this down. Let's like put blinders on approach to my queerness as a kid.
Yeah, man. And I feel like even as Mormons, sometimes in Utah, like I feel like I was a part of like kids who are Mormon, but like we're not doing good things, right? Like there is a very much culture of like, yeah, we're all Mormon, but like we're drinking or we're smoking
Mhm.
weed or we're doing this, Like, so did you ever get involved in any of that in Utah, or were you more of like the straight laced, like I am going to just be the perfect Mormon girl?
Oh, I was so straight-laced. Like, I was so straight-laced. The most daring thing I did as a teenager was when I was, like, 15, 16. My friends and I made a summer bucket list, and we had written on it, "Sneak out" as one of our things, and I snuck out one night across the golf course that I lived by to get to my friend's house, and we were all so scared, we just sat in her basement for an hour, did nothing, just talked, and then went home. And my mom found my bucket list and saw it was crossed out and was like, "Did you do this?" And I was like, "Yep, sorry. Like, will never happen again." And it didn't. Like, that's the most daring thing I ever did was sneak out for an hour and tell my mother. Like, I was
Okay.
incredibly
So
straight-laced.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, which is like that's what we're taught. So it's not like,
Mhm.
it makes sense that you would be that way. I feel like through now that you're out, what did that look like? Like I guess when you did get married to your husband, like was there any attraction there, or did you just think that like, oh, it would come later on?
No, I mean, I will say I think what took me a long time to come to terms with my queerness is that I'm like not the type of lesbian that was like repulsed by men. I think
Mhm.
there's also like something to be said about the culture of straight and hetero couples like really not liking each other. Like
Yeah.
there's, such a dialogue
Yeah.
around like, "Ugh, my husband, my wife, like my husband always wants to like make out. I don't want to, like blah 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 blah." And so I would talk to other, hetero couples that were like, "Ugh, my wife, like, ugh, my husband." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Like we're all on the same page." Or people would be like, "Marriage is so hard, it's awful, it's really bad." And my ex-husband was at the time, I haven't talked to him in 5 years, so I always like to say at this point, I'm like, I hope he's a different person, but he was a horrible person when I was married to him, and it was very toxic and very unsafe. And so when people would talk about how hard their marriages were, I was like, "Oh, I'm doing it right." Like I'm actually like, "Cool, like I'm doing this so well."
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I thought that's how it was. And like, when a bunch of 20-year-olds are getting married, like even if you are straight, there's a very high likelihood it's not going to be good. Like you don't know each other. And that's,
Yeah.
such a problem in the culture is that kids are getting married and I'm like, your brains aren't developing for another 5 years. Like you dated for 6 months. Like you don't know each other at all. So it's so normal for people to have unhealthy relationships and to talk about it. And so I thought it was just normal. Like I was like, cool, like you know? Everyone feels this way. Like no one's
Yeah.
really enjoying their marriage that much.
Yeah. And for the most part, like, it is hard. Like, when you get married that young and then just most people start popping out kids too, it's like they still never really get to know each other and really get to that level. So, what led, I guess, what was the series of events that led up to you, like, coming out and getting divorced?
Yeah, so I actually didn't even come out slash like realize I was queer for about a year after my divorce went through. So
Wow.
in our marriage was horrible. It like went to shit on the honeymoon. We were very much just like two people living in the same house and for 4 years, which is crazy. Like it lasted so long. And I had set the kind of like
Well,
release
before you
date.
get into that, sorry,
Yeah, no, you're so
what
fine.
happened on the honeymoon that you felt like that it just automatically, like, went to shit from there?
Yeah, he was just a very abusive person. Like, just
Mm,
had a lot of things that he needed to work on and come to terms with and process. And that was very much taken out on me. And he had come from a family that was very that way as well. Like, the deeper I got into
uh,
their family's culture, I was like, ooh, this is a pattern. Like, that really sucks. This is taught. And so we just fought our whole honeymoon. Like, it was just awful. And I literally remember I took myself on a solo drive on our honeymoon, just sobbing, being like, what have I done? Like, what has happened? Like, no, like
mhm.
this is really, really bad. But again, it's like
What do you
Mormon.
think led
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, because I was gonna say, like, what did you think stopped you from that moment of, like, because 'cause I've heard this from so many, and I have, like, a lot of friends currently who are getting divorced or
Mhm.
who are already divorced, right? And all of them, the common theme was, like, the honeymoon. Like, they knew on the honeymoon that, like, this was a mistake, and then they went, either 4 years, 5 years, a decade with this person and just kept in this misery. What part, I guess, of the Mormon teachings do you feel like kept you in that marriage for so long for 4 years? That's a long time to be with someone when on the honeymoon that they are an abusive person and not for you.
Yeah. Oh my God. I can talk about this for so long because one, I think culturally, even outside of the Mormon church, like something I'm very vocal about is abuse and domestic abuse and what that looks like in so many forms. Because culturally, and I'm like trigger warning, obviously, because I'm like, I don't want to dive into this topic in case someone's very fresh in it. But we don't talk about abuse unless it is like, hey, if you're cut and covered in bruises, that's abuse. And that's kind of like the only abuse that ever gets a light shown on it culturally. And it's so much more than that. And we do not talk about it enough. And so it's really easy to just like belittle what you're experiencing and just be like, okay, well, like I don't have a broken bone. So like we're chilling, right? Like,
Mhm.
and I think that was a huge part for me. And I also think that in the Mormon church, men are God. Like 12-year-old boys have the power of God. 12-year-old boys have more power than full grown women. And like
Yeah.
that does something to your psyche when like that is how you've grown up and that is how your brain has developed in this constant teaching that like you are not as good as men and you are never going to be as powerful as them. And and in my relationship specifically, it's like we had the Mormon dynamic of like men, run the household, men are in charge, men have power of
Yeah.
God. We had culturally just like how little these things are talked about. We had an age dynamic at play. He was 4 years older than me. I had met him in high school. He was
Yeah.
a returned missionary, so like that was a card that got pulled as well very often, was like, well, I'm a college graduate and you're not. So you don't understand what's happening
Mm,
here. Or like, I served a mission and you didn't. So like, you wouldn't get how the Holy Ghost speaks to me. And like, you wouldn't, like, you don't have access, to this godly power that men have in
yeah.
the church. And it's so hard to explain to people in the church. And I know you get that, where it's like, hey, that's actually like so messed up. That is so
Yeah.
messed up. And it's so messed up to teach children that, like, and to have them be raised in that capacity because that's how your brain forms. So like my brain truly was molded by men growing up, and then when I was married and I was a teenager and I was still so young, my brain hadn't developed that, like I could never know as much as a man. Like, I could never be as powerful as a man, and anything I knew
Yeah.
or any learned experience I had did not matter because there's always gonna be a man that knows more or had more
Yeah.
experience.
And it's so dangerous, a revelation like that the man is the head of the household. In our generation, I think they just like kind of twisted it to be more of like, well, he just receives revelation for the family. So that means he can receive direction from God for you and like your kids, but that trumps your autonomy, you know? And
Yeah.
then you go and get sealed together in the temple, and that part that really messed me up, going to get sealed when your husband pulls you through the veil. And I'm asking the sealer, wait, so does this mean that my husband's God is my God? Like, and he's like, well, you're just going to have to come to the temple, keep coming to like find out. But like you said, if there is some men who are abusive, and I don't even want to say some, I think a lot just within Mormonism, it's just really unhealthy dynamics that would take that to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a God, your God in the next
No,
life. So like
literally.
you need to listen to me.
Well, and it's like it gets worse the more you know about the Mormon church, right? Because it's like there's also that dynamic of like you get that second name, you get like your heavenly name, whatever
Oh
nonsense.
yeah, I forgot
And
about
it's
that.
like you have to tell your husband and he doesn't have to tell you. And that's because when Jesus comes again and everyone is resurrected, your husband is who saves you. And he has to know your heavenly name so that
Yeah.
he can call out your name and save you. And so it's like you're literally teaching people and you're teaching women and men, like, hey, like, you're not even going to get to be resurrected. And like, you're not even going to get saved if you don't obey your husband and you don't have this husband. And then, like, it just turns into this giant cycle that the Mormon church, I always tell people, I'm like, they're geniuses. Like, I'll give them that. They've got this system on lock. Like, they have used it
Yeah.
for evil, but like, they're very good at what they do. In the fact that, like, there's so many levels to the fear mongering that like to break free of it is so difficult because you're terrified. You're like, I'm, going to break up my chances of getting resurrected. I'm going to break up my family's chances of
Yeah.
being together forever. I'm never going to see my family again. Like, that's a very big pressure to put on someone to be like, hey, if you leave this really bad situation, you might not ever see your family again. So you're just like, okay, like, let's stick it out. Let's pray more. Let's read more
Yeah.
scriptures.
Yeah. And I feel like just talking about this like more and more, I'm realizing how like it's almost like honestly, how any of us are not, how all of us are in abusive relationships is a wonder, because it seems like we're almost primed for it as women, especially because it's like also you have to tell him your secret, your name, but he doesn't have to tell you that. And so it's like you're starting your marriage off, even though it's a small secret.
Mhm.
That's like wild. Like now I'm like, that is a wild, like even as stupid as it's just a stupid name and you could technically look it up, but it's just like such a weird thing that it's like, oh, it's okay for him to know stuff, but you're not going to know that. And it kind of sets you up for like, if you do become like a bishop's wife, you're not going to know like the different things that he's talking about in meetings. If you do, become a stake president's wife, you're not going to know different things and just kind of get comfortable with like not knowing the full picture.
Yeah.
And I feel like going on a mission really showed me that, because I saw how the church actually operated and like so many things that you don't get to see of how it is run. And it was really eye opening and also really disheartening to be like, oh, like this is like a legitimate boys club. And like even the people at the bottom though of this boys club like don't know the extent of like kind of how you're being taken advantage of.
Absolutely. I have a younger sister that I'm very close with, and she's still Mormon. She got back from her mission almost 2 years ago, I think now, or a little over 2 years. And she is incredibly devout, still very active in the church. And even she came home from her mission and was like, that was the most sexist experience I've ever had. Like, that was actually really messed up. Like, that was
Yeah.
really messed up, and has been very vocal to my family, especially about those dynamics. And even though she is so devout and is still in it and is nowhere near leaving, is very open about like, hey, that was really not okay. Like, that was really not
Yeah.
okay how the women are treated on their missions.
And that's exactly like all of my friends who are still Mormon that we all serve missions together with. like they will say the same thing. Like anytime I talk about like, yeah, but like that was like so sexist and misogynistic and like really bad, they'd be like, oh yeah, like 100%. Like they absolutely agree. So it's interesting that it's like we keep going with it. And I totally get, I'm glad you talked about just that experience because I get why you would stay. Like it's almost like, of course, like I would expect every woman to fall into an abusive relationship because our first abuser was our religion. And
Literally.
we just did all that. So it makes sense why you stayed. And so going through the divorce, how was that with like
Oh my
actually,
God.
was it you that said I want a divorce? Was it him? How did that work?
Yeah, so I am like not I'm like a spiritual person, but not a religious person. I will never be a part of a denomination again personally. But
Yeah.
my divorce truly was like to me a story of divine intervention. Like I had set basically like a time limit for myself, 19, of like I will let myself get divorced in 2020. August 2020 is the date I set for myself if things have not gotten better. Like we were going to couples counseling and I was like, I'll give it several months. Like I'll give this my best, like I want to be able to walk away from
Yeah.
this and say I gave it my all. And in fall of 2019, I literally just like had a week where I was like, I've got to go. Like I don't know why, but like we need to get divorced and we need to get divorced now. And there was a lot of like reasons that led up to that. Like he was escalating, he was getting much more dangerous. But there wasn't necessarily like a one big like, whoa, that was too far, let's go. And
Mm.
I like don't know what it was. Well, I do. I literally think it was divine intervention because I just made the decision. I was like, get out. Like you have to get out. You have to get out of my house. And we split and then the pandemic hit right after. And it like gives me like chills and like makes me want to cry every time I think about it because like I think I avoided something horrible happening to me. Like horrible. Because we would have
Yeah.
had to quarantine together and we would have been cut off from all resources and we would have been trapped in this home that like I was only surviving because I was a destination wedding photographer and could leave the house so often and not be around him.
Mm.
I truly feel like I'm like that is my testimony that there's something out there because I'm like there was no
Yeah.
reason for me to like wake up and make that call when I did and it was right before the pandemic hit and the divorce was super nasty. It was disgusting and it was really really painful to get through. January of 2020, I went on a trip to LA and I decided to move there and I signed for an apartment. And then the pandemic hit and I moved out the week the home order came out. Like I literally moved to California and my lease start date was the day that everything got locked down. So it was
I literally
obviously
have chills.
yeah. No, I am like truly so blessed and so lucky that like I also got out of the state. Like I was far. Like no one knew where I
Yeah.
was because I had bought us a home the last year of our marriage and we had these I always like tell this story as like the perfect example of like how lucky I am that I got out in the way that I did that we had electronic key codes, like the electronic little passcode things that you can have on doors.
Yeah.
We had those on our home and we had never activated them. We were just using keys. And I was on a work trip and he went to go pick up some of his stuff and he activated all of the locks and then didn't tell me the code and told all of his friends that he had done that so that he could have access to me and our home without me knowing. And even though his friends didn't know what had been happening behind closed doors, one of the wives, God bless her, I literally owe her my life, took me to lunch and was like, I don't know what's going on with you and blah, 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 but I need you to know that like he's been bragging that he's installed locks on your home. And we were all very uncomfortable with it. And I feel like you have a right to know that. And I had to get like an emergency locksmith and move as quickly as possible. Like it was insane.
It's like literally like a movie of him trying to like trap you in that
Yeah.
house. And I feel like I love stories like that because people think that like, oh, that must mean that like you need to go to this religion or God's real or this. But like sometimes it's just like thank you to your body for acting when your mind didn't know yet what
Mhm.
was coming, kind of fight
Mhm.
or flight of like survival and your body knew, I have to get out. I have to get out. Didn't know why
Absolutely.
yet, but like you took those measures. That's so wild. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Well,
It was really
thank
crazy.
you for
I'm like
sharing that.
yeah. No, I think it's like I mean, I talk about it a lot on my platform because I think it's like no one ever talks about this stuff, and it ends up in a
Yeah.
lot of young, vulnerable women, like I was, like, sticking through
Yeah.
behavior because they don't know how dark it is. Like, they don't realize, like, what's at stake, and they don't realize how awful it is, and they're scared of the consequences of speaking up.
Yeah. And I feel like also just seeing on your platform, you going from like blonde to dark hair, I was like, this girl's been through some shit. Like, new, I was like, whoa,
That's something that
something like, yeah. Just because I was like, you don't I mean, blondes, first of all, never dye their hair dark unless they mean it. And
yeah.
so it felt like, I don't know, almost like a butterfly coming out of your cocoon too, because I was like, whoa, you look really good with dark hair. Like,
Thank
I
you.
would say don't go back blonde. Like,
Oh my
dark
gosh, I'm
is
going back
where
blonde right now, I fear, but, like, a darker
Oh,
blonde.
you
I'm like,
are? Okay.
yes, but only
Yeah.
'cause, like,
Not
I
the
love changing
Utah
my hair.
bleach blonde.
No, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. Only 'cause, yeah, I love changing my hair so much, and I've had black hair, it's brown right now, we're, like, in the process,
Yeah.
for 3 years, and I'm like, "No, it's time to, like, give my hair a break." So we're going back to, like, my natural blonde, but I loved having black hair. I felt unstoppable with it.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure the blonde you'll go back to is it's not like the bleach blonde.
Yes. No, absolutely, and I'm like, it's gonna be so funny to, like I think it's gonna be, like, really beautiful to look like what I used to look like and what I looked like growing up, but, like, as this version of myself and, like, covered in tattoos now and, like, have found my style, like, I think it's gonna be really interesting to, like, look in the mirror and be like, "Oh my god, this is, like, what I look like basically my entire life up until 4 years ago," which is crazy.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it because moving to LA, like, what was the discovery of like you coming out and like what was dating like? Like, I don't even understand. Like, it's already so much to leave Mormonism. But then I think for like queer ex-Mormons, I'm like, how did you even like get to that place of like dating and like being comfortable when it's like I'm just over here like, telling my husband like maybe you could try pulling my hair a little when we're having sex.
No, that's so real.
Let me see.
It was definitely a long journey. I was really lucky that we all kind of had like our little like COVID circle, like the 4 or 5 people
Okay.
that we were hanging out with during COVID and that we could see. And the majority of mine was queer. Like most of my friends were queer. And I'm so grateful for them. Some I'm still friends with, some of them I'm not. And like I'm still so grateful for all of them because I don't think I would have come out as quickly as I did, or like I didn't come out for a while, but like discovered my queerness as quickly as I
Mhm.
did without them because I was away from Utah. I was away from the culture. I wasn't going to church for the first time in my entire life. And I was able to talk to queer people, being like, hey, like, is it normal to think about kissing girls? And they would be like, yes, for a gay person. And I was like, whoa, like, who would have thought? That's crazy. And I really got this opportunity to like, and I'm so lucky that they were so open too, to like answering my questions and like
Yeah.
being encyclopedia for queerness for me as I just tried to really like work through what I thought all of these thoughts were my entire life and what they actually were and what this meant for me. And I first came out as bi. I came out as bi to my family in, I want to say like summer of 2021, and it did not go well. And
Mhm.
that was really, really difficult. It did not go well with my parents, and they really, really struggled with it for a while. But I was dating a man, and so it was a little bit more tangible. Then, and I wasn't dating women at all. I was dating this man for like the entirety of LA. I think I went on like one date, like my first date with a girl right as I was leaving LA. And
Mm.
I then moved to New York City. And I moved to New York City in fall of 2021. And I owe New York City my life. I love that city. It was my dream to move there my entire life. So it was really personally fulfilling. But it also was just the perfect, most vibrant queer place to be and to like discover my queerness and come into my queerness and to be in a city, specifically in Brooklyn. I was always in Brooklyn. That was so gay and like so accepting. And you get to meet every minority, every intersectionality of anything ever. I literally was telling my friend the other day too, I was like, I couldn't even go to a party without meeting people from other countries. Like it was like I was constantly meeting so many people from so many different lives. And it was so beautiful. I'm so grateful for it. It's one of the things I miss most about living in New York is just like the people are unparalleled. And so I got to like move to the city. I moved and I knew no one too. So I got to like, and I was across the country from everyone I knew. So it was really this opportunity to like restart and be like, who am I? Like, what is
Yeah.
queerness? Where do I fit into this? Like, am I gay? Am I bi? And so I got to date around a lot and date a lot of different beautiful people and to really discover myself and my queerness surrounded by accepting people and people that really encouraged you to find yourself and figure yourself out. And I didn't come out as a lesbian until I got, I think, like, my first girlfriend. Like, I think that's when I was like, "Oh, I'm, like, gay, gay. Like, this isn't like, I've never felt this way about a man, not even close. Like, this is what people have been talking about their entire lives on how they feel when they date, when they kiss people." Like, I was like, "Okay, like, yeah, I think we're really gay." And that was a very honestly, like, difficult pipeline. There's a coming from a conservative family and a conservative background, there was definitely a lot of comfort in thinking I was bisexual because I was like, "Well, I could still
Yeah.
maybe with a man, and that would make my life so much easier." And
Yeah.
so that was really hard. It was really hard on me to walk this bi to lesbian pipeline and to, like, come to terms with the fact that I was, like, actually gay, and like, going to have to process what that was gonna look like for the rest of my life, not only, like, personally with my family, but also just culturally. Again, it's like, we didn't really get a ton of queer media and queer representation until the last several years, and so it's like, I what does it look like to end up with a woman? What does it, look like to
Mm.
marry a woman? Like, I don't even know. Like, I don't know any married lesbian couples, like, when I was first coming out, so it was
Yeah.
the journey.
I'm sure very scary too,
Yeah.
like, to, because I'm sure, yeah, like you said, even your thought of like, "Oh, this will be easier if I'm, like, bi," I'm sure your family was still like, "Well, maybe she'll still be with a boy. Maybe, like, that's just how it'll end up," but, like, I can only imagine, like, having to download all that, and I think, like, already in general, like, sex is a hard topic in Mormonism, and just, like, relationships dynamics, I feel like also are a very hard topic, and then bringing in like queerness into that and having to learn all of that seems really, really daunting. Were you like, with your first relationship with women, do you feel like they were like open to like listening to your concerns? Were there any like traumatic things where you're just like, need to, leave this date, or I can't do this? Like, how did that look for you?
Yeah, I got really lucky in the sense that my first girlfriend, I was also her first girlfriend. She had only been dating men
Mm.
prior. And I'm really grateful that that was the experience that we had because there is so much deconstructing to do in general, just culturally in regards to gender roles and like the way that you show up in a queer relationship. And this totally different dynamic because dating women is so different than dating men. Like men and women are so different. Like we really are in the way that we've been culturally conditioned to talk about our
Yeah.
feelings, show up and hold space. And I'm really lucky that we got to kind of do that together. I think it would have been difficult to, I have like a lot of opinions. I talk about this actually a lot on TikTok that like, I think it's a weird dynamic that sometimes we see in queerness to see like very experienced queer people dating people new to queerness because
Mhm.
it's almost like an age gap in the sense that like you're just approaching a relationship with such different experiences that there almost becomes like a natural power dynamic. And that's not the case always, but like it's something that we see pretty often in, all types of relationships. But I'm really
Yeah.
lucky that we got to kind of like deconstruct that together. And I've always been very vocal about my divorce and like the way that I was raised because I did date someone, a man, but I did date someone that really struggled with the fact that I had been married. And that was like a really unhealthy part of our relationship that like he just could not get over. And so after that relationship ended, I was always very vocal on like, hey, like I'm divorced. Like I've been in a relationship for
Mm.
6 years and I'm only a year out of it. Like I am deconstructing a lot right now. I'm deconstructing that.
Yeah.
I'm processing that. I'm leaving Mormonism. I'm leaving Utah. I've got a lot in my brain right now. So let's just make sure
Yeah.
that that's not something like that's secret. Like that is something that is going to be very present for me. And still is, honestly. Like I'm like, I've been out of the church for 5 years and I was in it for 25. Like that is gonna take a lot of time to completely deconstruct.
Yeah, and it's our whole like formative years of our lives too. So it's a lot to get in. How do you feel, I guess, now? Because I feel like even myself, just getting more acquainted with like the LGBTQ plus community and like terminology and all of that, like how was that coming to terms like with a lot of the struggles of the community? Like, do you feel like you instantly had to become this activist and like speak out about the struggles and things going on within the community? Or did you sit back? Like, what did you do to like educate yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you felt this way when you left the church, but I still feel like I know nothing about like real life and real humans. Like
Yeah.
even now, I've been out for 5 years and someone will be like, "What cocktails do you like?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Like I just started drinking a couple years ago. Like I don't know anything. So when it came to like
Yeah.
deeper issues like queerness and other religions and even world events, like I have gone home to Utah and had to explain to people what's going on in Gaza, and I'm like, how have you not even heard about this? Like this is so insane to me.
Yeah.
So I thankfully, I'm like, I was the closeted queer that was just like, I'm a really strong ally. Like, I was the teenager, like, listening to Same Love by Macklemore and like sobbing as a 16-year-old, being like, I'm just so happy gay people get to be happy. And I'm like, no, girl,
Not realizing that.
I'm like, the closet is glass. So thankfully, like, while I didn't know a lot, the struggles of the queer community were not new to me. Like, I was learning about
Okay.
Stonewall and I was advocating for queer rights, not as much as I should have or as I would have liked to, but like more than the average Mormon, for sure. I was very vocal about it.
Yeah.
And so thankfully I didn't have to be like shoot, like let me learn that queer people are even prosecuted. Like I already knew that and I already had like a good grip on like at least the basics of some queer history. And New York, again, was just an amazing place to dive further into that. And to, it's like Stonewall is in New York. And I got to go to Stonewall
Yeah.
and I got to learn about Marsha P. Johnson. And I got to learn about all the other history that's happened in New York that was so foundational to queer rights. And I got to be a part of marches and I got to do New York City Pride and I got to go to very historic places and gatherings and learn more about the queer community. And so, like, I know not everyone obviously is going to have the opportunity to come into their queerness in New York City, but like that was a very expensive opportunity, but I'm grateful that that is how it went for me.
Yeah, I love that so much. And because I had to ask you, because I keep seeing this term and I'm like, I have no idea what this means. And instead of Googling it, I was like, I'm going to ask somebody who I
Yeah.
heard using this term, what does sapphic mean?
Oh my God, I knew it was going to be that word because it's so.
How did you know?
Because everyone, if you're not in the queer community, not a lot of people know it. So sapphic comes from Sappho, who is a poet, I'm pretty sure, from the island of Lesbos, who wrote about queerness quite a bit. And sapphic is this umbrella term for like queer women. Like, so women who like women, or women who like non-binary people, or non-binary people who like women, right? Like sexuality is very self-defined. So I'm always hesitant to give like finite definitions, and the fact that like I don't
Mhm.
obviously have a say in how people identify, but sapphic is like a really good way of just envisioning it is like queer women and like non-men, like non-binary people that like women and non-binary people. So it's kind of this umbrella term. So like me, where I like host this sapphic collective, it's basically like a no boys
Yeah,
allowed.
I saw that.
Like it's like this is for queer women, like queer non-men to get together.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I love that. Because I was thinking just like, I'm not sure if you've seen this show, Overcompensating,
I
um,
started, I haven't
with
finished it yet.
Benito. Yeah, it's so good. But I felt like watching that show was like another, I don't know, just moment in leaving Mormonism of like, I have no idea like what's going with like life or like reality of like people's lives outside of like my little bubble, you know? And I felt like watching that show is like Googling all these terms. I'm like, what does this even mean? I'm like, wow, like how does somebody even do this? And it also was so hilarious and so like heartbreaking and sad. And so great show, everyone. You should watch it.
And I love Benito. He's so good. I like love his content in general. So I'm glad he got that.
Yes, he's so good. And I loved that it was like, I mean, he grew up Catholic in Idaho, but I was like, I feel like a lot of Mormons and ex-Mormons, like, we could relate to it so much just because of, I don't know, the whole style of it. I was like, this is so like just Mormon family
No,
still, you know?
absolutely.
Well, I want to get into just some closing thoughts. One about your business and like building your business now from, you know, like photography to coaching and how that looked, because it seems like by the time you got divorced you were already a successful photographer. So what did that look like building that? And did you ever feel, I don't know, just I feel like in any sense of women's careers or like non-traditional careers like artists, I think it would just be hard to like create a business in Mormonism. So what did that look like, I guess?
Yeah, it's so funny because like the one very non-traditional thing about like my Mormon marriage was that he didn't work like the entire time. Like I
Oh,
was like a sugar mama. Yeah, which I always tell people and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "No, it's like the most antithesis Mormon thing that like ever could have happened." Like he refused to be the
yeah.
provider. And I weirdly that helped in the sense that it was like now I need to earn enough money and be successful enough to like buy a house, provide for two people, paid for his school in cash. He was also like a huge spender. Like he would spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month on like motorcycles and cars. So it was like I was in this position of like, you have to like work this hard or there's not going to be food on the table kind of vibes. And
Yeah.
that was very difficult, obviously, but like was a huge contender and contributor to how my business grew as fast and successful as it did, is because I kind of had like no other choice, honestly. Like it was like that or we have no way to pay rent. So I started it up when we first got married. I went full time and I was working two jobs up until going full time. So I was working my photography basically full time hours, and then I was working a full time job as well on top of that. So I was working like 90 hours a week until my photography was big enough to quit my full time job and like still pay for our bills. And then I was able to give that like my total attention, and that really took off. And obviously, like right as the pandemic happened was when I got my divorce. So it was a little bit of a blessing in disguise in the sense that like all weddings were rescheduled and canceled. And I kind of got a break
Yeah.
from going through a divorce and being a wedding photographer because I had several weddings happening towards the end of 2019 when things were like really falling apart. And like that was one of the hardest things I've ever done, is like be a professional wedding photographer while getting divorced and like having this horrible thing happening to my marriage at home. I remember there was one wedding I literally had to like take a bathroom break in between dances and just like sob, and then you just have to like
Oh
put the face
my
on and go
God.
back out. So
That would
it
be
was like
so
weirdly
hard.
yeah, it was like weirdly a blessing that like weddings were almost taken off my plate for a second, like while the
Mm.
pandemic happened
Yeah.
and I could process my divorce. And because I didn't have weddings though, I just moved to LA. I needed to be earning money. That's how I kind of transitioned into more of the coaching and consulting for creative entrepreneurs and photographers, because that was like something I could do from, you know, this apartment I couldn't leave in LA. And that really took off. And I did that full time for the last several years since 2020, and just like shot and photographed on the side. And then starting a couple years ago, started hosting parties. It just became, I've become more extroverted. Like the more I've found myself, I used to be extremely quiet, extremely private, extremely introverted. And now I'm like the most extroverted
Yeah.
person I know. And I started hosting parties, which I've loved. And then last summer, while I was wrapping up my New York chapter, I started hosting these massive lesbian parties in my apartment, and they just got really big.
I
And yeah, I'm like, it was crazy. We had like 50 lesbians in this tiny New York apartment. And then I threw one when I first moved here to Chicago, and it also ended up being like 50 people. And I was like, oh, we like can't do this in my house anymore. Like I can't be having 50 people or like 50 strangers in my apartment. Like that's way too much. And so I launched this collective called Garden of to help sapphic people just meet each other and make friends, and kind of like providing a opportunity for community outside of the like partying, hooking up, like drinking culture that exists a lot in cities and in queer spaces. And yeah, it's just taken off so much faster than I could have ever imagined. I launched at the end of February, so it's only been a couple months, and it's been insane. Like it's become a full-time job within just a couple months. And yeah, we're like trying to get a physical space right now. We just like announced that we're looking for a studio. We're fundraising for that to make essentially like a sapphic community and arts center. And it's been amazing. It's been like honestly like really healing and really beautiful, and just like such an honor to hold spaces for queer people that are safe. And like I'm like, you're not really safe in straight spaces, but like sapphic people are also like safe in gay spaces sometimes. Like men are handsy, even the gay ones sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's been really lovely to be able to provide really safe spaces for the queer community to come together and like make lifelong friends.
Gosh, I bet that's so healing. Like to leave such a big part of our community and life behind when we leave Mormonism, and now to have built something, and not just built something, but like to see like how much it's needed and people just like flocking to that must be incredibly healing. And that's so cool. Like I hope that you guys find a space and like start branching out to other cities too. That would be so awesome.
I know. I'm really happy with it and like really excited and really honored, honestly. And yeah, I think it's like that's such a huge fear when you leave religion of like, will I ever find community like this again? And
Mhm.
it's been crazy and beautiful and healing to find a community that's more loving and more accepting and more willing to help and more willing to give and more willing to take, right? Like it's like we
Yeah.
think that Mormonism is like the end all be all to like having community and support, and it's not at all. Like there's so much community and support elsewhere.
That's so beautiful. Sorry, my light turned off, but it's okay. We'll keep going. I love that. Okay. Well, I want to get into just because I love how you talked about like your relationship now with your family. So
Mhm.
even your mom is like more accepting now of your just like being a part of the LGBTQ plus community. Like, how did that relationship and like that kind of move into a better place?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I have traditionally been very close with my parents, especially my mom, and they really struggled with me coming out. It was really difficult for them to process. I think, too, like the timeline of it must have been a lot in the sense that it was like, oh
Mhm.
my God, Eden just got divorced. Like, that's a lot for Mormon parents to process. And then, like, oh my God, Eden's leaving the church. And then, like, oh my God, Eden's gay. Like, it was just like so many things within a year and a half that they were just like, oh my God. And we honestly, like, did not have much of a relationship for a year and a half. We did not speak much. We didn't have many conversations. I saw them maybe once or twice. And it was really hard on all of us, truly, because we are a fairly tight knit family. And after about a year and a half, I called them and I basically was like, hey, I love you guys, but like, this isn't going to work. Like, we're not going to have a relationship unless you do some serious work. And like, the work that I want you to do is that I want you to find a therapist. They can't be Mormon and they have to be queer affirming. And like, essentially just was like, you're going to sort your shit. Like, if you're going to have a relationship with me and if you want to be in my life, I expect you to do this and I expect you to give it your all and I expect you to deconstruct your homophobia and then we can work towards a relationship. And like, sorry if I cry, it makes me really emotional. They did. Like, they did that. And not a lot of queer kids can say that, period, let alone Mormon parents, like a child of Mormon parents. And like, so many queer people don't get that. They get kicked out of their homes and they get kicked out of their families and they never get to see or talk to their family again. And I am like so lucky and so grateful that I have the parents that I do and that they were willing to just like look at the love that they have for their daughter and be like, that is enough to just try. Like, that is enough to just like get us into therapy and try to understand what is happening here. And now my parents like the biggest little allies. Like they're and like they get called like the socialists in their ward because they're like very like progressive.
Yeah.
And huge advocates. And yeah, my dad's been on this like huge route to feminism over the last couple years and has started writing all the bishops and stake leaders like demanding that they give women more positions and that they give women more power and more recognition. And like my mom's an art teacher, and she was like, I'm trying to figure out how I can do like, you know, a queer art class for kids in our ward that are queer. And like, yeah, I'm so lucky. Like, not a day goes by that I am not like so clearly, like viscerally grateful that I have the parents that I do. Like, not everyone gets that privilege. And it is like such a blessing that like those are the parents I was given.
Gosh, yeah, that is so beautiful. And I hope that other parents will listen and start doing that, because yeah, like it is sad how we were raised, of thinking that like, oh, this is like a disease, this is like a mental health issue, this is that, and really like the issue was us and our thinking, you know, it was never the issue with people. So that is so beautiful. And especially that your parents are still Mormon, I think makes it even more beautiful, because I think that is really hard to ask them basically to deconstruct some of their beliefs so that they, you know, can understand you. But I also feel like that's like the true meaning of love is going to the ends of earth to like understand someone and to see them for who they really are. So, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing that, Eden. So beautiful. Well, for the closing segment, I just want to do a segment called Oral Traditions. And that's just listener submissions and your thoughts on the question. And the question was that I asked listeners was, what would you say to your younger queer self, or what would you want them to know? I'll read some of the responses that people gave because they were so beautiful. And I felt like queer kids or people who aren't out yet will really take it to heart. The first one was, there's nothing wrong with you. Your queerness isn't a test, a phase, or a temptation. It's a beautiful part of who you are. Gosh, and I like don't want to cry during this.
No, I don't make it. I will stop.
So I'm gonna yeah, I'm just like, these were so good. And I just know that like these are probably, you know, men and women similar to your position who have had to like walk this path of just, I just think it is harder to leave Mormonism, to be queer, you know, it just is such a hard thing to come out of. So this one is, someone said, despite what you've been taught, your existence doesn't disappoint God. If there is a God, they love you fully and as exactly as you are. No conditions, no shame, no guilt. This other one says, so many of us have felt that same ache, that same confusion, and many of us have made it out, and now you're holding the door open for you and others. The pain you feel now is real, but so is the power growing inside of you. You'll find your people, your voice, your freedom. Hang in there and hang on. Someone said, you don't owe purity to anyone. Your body is not a tool for righteousness. It's a home, it's a compass, and a canvas for pleasure and expression. I know, they did such a good job. And then this one, you're not selfish for wanting something different. You don't need to marry a man. You're not failing anyone by choosing your truth over their expectations. So, Eden, do you have any thoughts, any last, what you would want to say to your younger queer self?
Oh my gosh, I think like I have so many, but I think like the biggest one is that like if there is a God, that your queerness is a gift, not a curse. I have experienced a love, even just outside of romantically, just platonically, a love and acceptance and beauty within being queer and being a part of the queer community that is so beyond anything I thought existed and beyond anything I thought I was capable of or that anyone was capable of. And I am so grateful to be queer. And it makes me so emotional thinking about how long I begged to not be and like how much more beautiful my life is because I am, and what a gift it is to be a part of this community and to experience queer love and to experience queer expression. It's such a beautiful thing that like truly I can hardly put words to. And I just am like so excited for this next generation of queer and young adults that will hopefully get to see so many more examples of how beautiful your life can be as a queer person and how diverse it can be and how unique it can be, because it is such a beautiful gift to be queer.
And we'll end it right there because that was gorgeous. Is there anything you're working on that you want to plug, or where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Not Eden Strader. And then our sapphic collective is Garden of Collective, like Garden of Eden. And yeah, we just started a fundraiser. I think the only plug I have is that a fundraiser to build a sapphic space here in Chicago. And I know money is tight and the economy is weird, but I've just been asking people even to just share it and to tell their friends and to tell their family and just help us spread the word that hopefully we can meet that fundraising and start building sapphic spaces.
Well, you're beautiful, Eden. Like everything that you are doing, I feel like it's so needed. And thank you so much for being on the podcast. And everyone, please go follow Eden. And you can also follow Potty Mouth Podcast at not on TikTok, on Instagram. And you can follow Tara M. Herbert on TikTok. And you can join the Pouty Girls Discord channel if anyone is looking to talk more about ex-Mormonism, adoption, all of that. And we will see you next week.
Hello? Yeah, I'll tell him. Hey sinners, it's your fucking prophet speaking. God says that we actually came from her vagina, not Adam's rib. God wants us to address her as that bitch now in all prayers and legal documents. Did you know that John has a twink on the side? Olivia doesn't even know. Oh my god, I heard that they're swingers. She practically propositioned me in the church parking lot. Having gained an angel, more like hell gained a bitch.